Okay, class, today we're going to look at this idea of quotations and citations. I have two slides here for you to look at, one with the framework of what is discussed in the book on pages 160 through 166, and the other one is actual, like the integration, how it works and what it looks like with the actual quotes. So the first thing we're going to look at is this idea of quotations. So if you're framing a quotation, framing meaning how you're putting aspects around it, because you're not going to just put a quote. You need to actually put more information. And if you just put a quote and you don't analyze it, it's almost like the quote doesn't count. So you need to make sure that you're actually putting the quote there. So there are several things that you can do, which need, actually you have two really good options. The idea is that it includes several sentences as commentary and analysis. Don't just do quote, analysis, quote, analysis, quote, analysis. Your analysis should be more than one sentence, and it should provide you with enough information to be able to analyze and understand it. So option one, you have a lead-in sentence, as in you're introducing the quote, you're introducing the idea, then you're giving the quotation, and then after that, you're analyzing or commenting on it. So this is usually about 3 sentences. Usually it's 1 sentence per each. You could also combine giving the quote with the lead-in, like the author shows blah, blah, blah by using this quote, and then give the quote as part of the sentence. You shouldn't be doing block quoting anymore. Block quoting means just that full quote, quotation marks, beginning of end, and no other words in there. I don't want to see ellipses, which is the 3 dots in the middle, in the beginning, and the end. If you don't need the information, you don't need to include that. And you don't need to do an entire sentence as the quote. The quote is exactly what you need when you want it, and putting it where you want it. So you can manipulate the words that way, but you need to not be doing the ellipses in there, okay? Especially for the AP English, it is not a requirement in there. You use just the words that you need, okay? The second option is you start by giving the quote, and then you give 2 sentences of analysis or commentary. Either one is acceptable, either one is doable, and I suggest varying it so it shows that you know how to deal with this and how to work with this. Now, if we look at the samples in the next one on integrating quotations, integrating means that you're actually I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of this. Okay, so integrating means that you should actually, sorry, I was trying to play with the camera for a moment. Integrating the quotes means it's how you actually incorporating the quote in a clear manner that is easy to understand. So it's how are you putting it into the sentence, okay? So here you have the first example. So you're integrating a quotation into your own sentences. This first example is what we call a block quote. So you notice here it's the entire sentence is that quote, you have your citation, and then you have your period. Okay, that is what I call block quoting. That's what we're trying to avoid now. So yes, it's acceptable. Yes, it's okay to do it once in a while, but I don't suggest that that's how you do every single quote, which is how most of you do your quotes. So if we read this, surveys show that 5 of every 6 millennials believe their generation has the greatest duty to improve the environment. It gives the source number, and then it moves on to what would be the analysis. So this is an example of like, the number 2 from the previous one, where it's just the block quote and then the analysis. Now here, if you're looking at this second one, Howe and Strauss indicate that 5 out of 6 millennials believe their generation has the greatest duty to improve the environment and would accept additional civic duties to bring about needed change. This is how you're manipulating the quote. So it's the same idea here, but in one much better sentence, you're able to give information. So here, this idea of a survey shows that 5 out of 6 millennials. Okay, here, giving the author's name, okay, indicate instead of shows, indicate is a much stronger word. It's okay to not have the 5 out of 6 millennials in the quote because it's common knowledge with the survey. But what's more important is the words that the author uses, okay? So those words here. And then civic duties comes from the next line within the document itself. So if you go back and look at document 1, it actually has civic duties as part of it. So here there are no ellipses, there are no ellipses here because several of you would put in a couple of ellipses here to show that you're cutting out the beginning of the sentence or the quote. You don't need to. You only need to put in what you actually need. This second sentence is much better in how it is written. It shows that you have more control over your language, which is important. Control over your language is very important when we're looking at the AP language test. Okay, now looking at citations. Citations are different when it comes to the synthesis essay because it is a rough draft. So you're not doing a bibliography, you're not doing a works cited page, you're not doing endnotes or footnotes. What you're doing instead is you're showing which document you're using. So you have two options, okay? You have two options. The first option is like this one here, which is your normal end citation. Okay, after you close the quotes, in parentheses, you put the source and the number, or you can put the author's last names. They are acceptable either way. You do not put the title unless there is no title, but the AP readers prefer that you actually do source numbers or author's last names. And it is completely okay that you do source 1, source 2, source A, source B. However, they list it in their set of documents. Okay, it is completely acceptable, I promise you. Okay, the next option is instead of doing an end text citation, which is what this is called, that you do a citation within the sentence. So here, Howe and Strauss indicate that 5 out of 6 millennials. Howe and Strauss, that's your citation. You're showing that that's the document that you're using. You're showing that that's your source. They happen to be the authors of source 1. Okay, so here you could have put source 1 or you could have put Howe and Strauss. Here you could have also done the same thing. You could have put source 1 indicates that 5 out of 6 millennials. And so it's fine either way. They are interchangeable in the realm of the AP language synthesis test. Okay, so that is how citations go. That is how quotations go. I want you to read through on page 163. It has an activity there, and it says below you will find a paragraph written using the mission statement from the Dalton School as a source, which was one of the sources that we read for homework last night. Read the paragraph and then revise it in order to make more effective use of the source. What I want you to do is not necessarily rewrite it and revise it, but I want you to like highlight things or make note of things like in your margins of things that you would change. So as tomorrow, when we're looking at this in class, you have a better understanding of how it works and what it would look like. Okay. Also, make sure that you look at the sample synthesis essay on page 165 and 66 and how they're integrating quotes, how they're doing citations, because that's important to go back to the examples I showed you today. And then also, if you look at page 162, there are the 4 thesis statements that are there as samples. What I want you to do is look at them and pick one that you think stands out to you. Okay, and we're going to talk about a couple of those tomorrow in class, so being prepared for that. So on 162, definitely look at those 4 theses. On 163, be prepared to talk about changes that should be made. And on 165 and 66, look at the sample essay that's there for you. Okay, I will see you tomorrow in class, and have a good night.